is this interview I saw, and I'm going to, I hope I pronounce his name right. It was an interview with Reggie Fils-Aime, and my joke is I may be mispronouncing his name, but but I don't think I am. I think I got it right. He is retired, but he was the president and COO of Nintendo.
That's right.
Yeah, and fascinating story from this guy. I mean, they touched briefly on his, beginnings in a, not affluent neighborhood in Brooklyn, where he came from, but he didn't really spend a whole lot of time dwelling on that. Let's say he pushed himself. He moved forward. He was the first non-Asian, non-white person hired in any sort of role like that at Nintendo. He was actually hired as the VP of sales, and while he was being courted for that position, he demanded a meeting with the then president. And as he was taking the job, he found out later that almost cost him the job, but he would have been okay with that. He knew that he was going to work very closely with this person, and he needed to know if he could actually work with this person and develop a rapport with them. And so he did. Now, the person that he talked with, I don't have the guy's name, but this person was the first non-Nintendo family member of the business, or non-family member of Nintendo. And he was Asian and in Japan, and became kind of a mentor to him. But he was a fascinating story. He became called the Reginator. He was always about just opening doors and pushing forward. And under his watch, the Nintendo DS, the Wii, the Switch, all were products that came out, and it was just interesting to hear him talk not only about his career, but for the reasons that he retired. And this was the part that made me think about our show here. And he quit because he wanted to do other things, and he knew that even if he could delegate, a lot of his day-to-day responsibilities, let's say, he would still have the oversight responsibility. And it on a very different level reminded me of what has happened with me since the Mac Observer was acquired. I didn't think that was taking up a lot of my time, Shannon.
Yeah.
Because it was on autopilot, right?
Yes.
And for better and for worse, I will say, that business is already, I can see things. It is doing much better having someone at the helm that is focused on it and pushing it forward. It's fantastic. It's great. Yep. But I thought, because when I started telling friends oh yeah, the site's been acquired, they're like, oh great, you can retire now. I'm like, yeah, I don't really spend that much time on it, so I don't think it's not going to make any difference. I have Backbeat, I have my shows that we do, those sorts of things. And yet, in the last few months, I've found that my inbox is much cleaner. I have more time to do side projects and things like that. It's I guess it was taking up more mental space than I realized. And when he said this, it was this is really interesting, because he said he wanted to write books. He wanted to do some board work. He wanted to teach about his experiences. He wanted to do interviews like he was doing at South by Southwest. And he couldn't do those things while he was running the company. And it was really interesting to me to, we always think, well, we can always add more to our plate. And I know I am very much guilty of that. And I think it's possible there might be another person here that does the same thing. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but, the door's open. But it was really interesting that was the reason he quit. Now, obviously, he got himself to a point where financially he didn't need the paycheck anymore.
Correct.
Right. But I got the feeling that had been true for quite some time, and that he was working because he wanted to work, and he enjoyed the projects. He enjoyed the challenge. He enjoyed leading the team, and he was working in the gaming industry. So he was literally playing games often. And he said that. They asked him, how much gaming did you do? He's like, oh, daily. And he says, I would work with the team, and we would talk on Mondays about the games that we played over the weekend and all that stuff. So he had a pretty fun job, all things considered. But it didn't leave him time to do the things that he wanted to do. And he was smart enough to know that. which is sort of the key. And that's part of what I wanted to just share here. So, yeah.
Also, yeah. And I think it's being self-aware.
Yeah.
And I think as small business owners, it can be challenging. At least I know what it was for me.
Yeah.
To realize, okay, like your point where you look and see your former business doing really well, because someone has maybe some new energy, new ideas, new focus, right?
Yeah.
And I have been through that as well. And it's a different feeling knowing stepping away, knowing that it's going to do great without you, and then transitioning to like, man, I'm so happy it's doing great, and seeing these businesses out there under the helm of other people that you've either sold or
you're mentored and brought them up and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, businesses that are, still around today that I started in my bedroom 25, 30 years ago. It's great. Yeah. But it's a big transition to be able to step away. And that's a good thing to study.
It was, it was fascinating. I was, I actually watched that interview remotely. South by this year, it had not, that was the first show that was canceled in the United States in 2020, right? That show did not happen in 2020. So it had been since 2019. And that year, they did an admirable job of rejiggering as much of the content as they could and putting things online. And then certainly last year, they did a fantastic job of it. And this year, certainly they brought back the in-person part, but they also brought they left the online portion in place. And in fact, I would say they iterated on that and made that better too. So the first 3 days of South by Southwest, I consumed from here. I attended from here. My family was not home, which worked out really well. But I had some projects to do, very specifically cleaning up my office and then cleaning up the studio here and just reorganizing things. And it was perfect to have these kinds of sessions on while I was doing those things, because it's, I would watch the first 5 minutes, orient myself to who the people were, how they sounded. And then I didn't have to just watch, because it's basically like, it would be like watching you and me do the show, right?
Yes.
And it's just two people talking. And so it was very easy for me to pay attention like you would to this podcast without me, without just gluing my eyes to the screen, which is what happens to all the people in the room anyway. They all have their laptops out. They're sort of doing other things and listening, kind of in the background. Often, I don't want to say every attendee, but it's not uncommon at conferences. And so it was an interesting thing. And then, of course, I went and, I flew down and saw the rest of South by Southwest in person. But they did a great job both with sessions like this and also movies. And I have a couple of movies to talk about. I want to get to our topic for the day. So I will talk about these two movies the next time we get together here. Yeah. But they did a good job at making this hybrid conference really work well. So, and that's not easy. So, yeah, it was good.